again, I can't even remember the ending score. I don't think we lost by more than 10. So I think it was close enough to be close. But yeah, that's a memory that'll stick with me for a long time, is getting an opportunity to play in that Final Four game, and it being used as kind of a spark to kind of get the other guys going.
Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I'm your host for today, Logan Hufford, and got a special guest, an in-house guest, Jared Kettler. He's one of the advisors here at Veritas, and we've been working together now for about half a decade. And really, I just want to take some time and get to know you. I've gotten to know you as your coworker, for a lot of years, but there are some things that I don't know about especially your background in finance. And I think it'd be cool for clients, our audience, whether it's in the podcast world, social media, whatever, just to get to know you as one of the faces at Veritas, one of the earlier advisors to come on board a few years ago, and kind of what spurred you on for the last few years. So thanks for taking some time, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So you were at McKinley Capital before you came on to Veritas. I know that, and like, I know that, on paper, Jared was in the business. He was in the financial industry. I know you were doing different things than you do here. Other than that, I don't really know like an in-depth explanation of like what you were doing and, what does McKinley do and all that kind of stuff. So can you break a little bit of that down? Like what was your journey the last several years before you ever came over to Veritas?
Yeah. So when I was graduating undergrad from the University of Alaska, I was looking at a couple different avenues. One was potentially going the advisor route. And then the opportunity to join McKinley Capital came about, and that role was more of an introductory role. Worked in operations. The official title was portfolio accountant.
Okay.
Fancy name for reconciling bank statements. So we go through and make sure that our records at McKinley matched the bank's records for all the different trades.
Okay.
So what all that stuff is involved with, ultimately, you do that once a month for a client's account, and that would make it so that we could report performance, send out reports to the clients that were accurate. So really got a lot of experience in depth on the actual like nuts and bolts of trading. How McKinley's different from Veritas. McKinley deals mostly with, they'd be building the mutual funds or the funds that we now use to put together a long-term financial.
So building the actual mutual funds themselves.
Right. Yeah. So they would decide which stocks or companies to invest in and what percentages, and actually go out there and make those trades. And so you'd have portfolio traders, analysts, and then, the operations team, which, does, kind of the operations stuff. And that's the team that I was on. So, worked with them in other companies also, another consulting group for about 13 years, in various roles, but more on the operations side.
Was your role legally required? Like, were you like almost like a compliance part of it, or was it more for just adding value to the clients of McKinley?
There probably was a compliance requirement in there. We were always viewed more of as kind of an internal auditor.
Okay.
So like, hey, do this so that we can protect ourselves from audits.
Keeping the butt clean so that way if there is.
Yeah. So it was kind of more along those lines, but I imagine at a certain size, an institution would would be expected to do those sort of things and having a group that does that.
And so you graduated from UAA when?
2008.
Okay. And then, and I apologize if you said it and maybe I missed it. You started at McKinley when?
It was in that same year, so a couple months after graduation.
Right out of college.
Yeah. So I actually worked with McKinley directly only for about a year and a half, and then I got hired on by a group that was doing the same thing, but a consulting group based out of Exton, Pennsylvania. So I still worked with McKinley in some capacity, but then I branched out with a lot of other firms as well, doing similar work.
And so you were doing that for the next what?
About 13 12 years, okay. and I did it all remote. Like I said, they were based out of Pennsylvania. I might have gone into the main office 4 times over those 13 years.
Okay.
So it was a work from home, work from Japan. I spent three months in Japan when my wife was in school. Did all that stuff, dealt with different time zones and everything like that. It was a pretty awesome thing to be able to do going through my 20s and having the flexibility to be able to travel and still be in the industry doing what I enjoyed doing. So I did that for about 13 years. And, at a certain point though, I was realizing that, hey, if I'm just going to be honest, I woke up and say, hey, if I'm still doing this when I'm 50, I'm going to be, I'm not going to be happy with what I'm doing. And I had gotten to the point where that upward mobility was kind of hit. And I at the end of the day, I'm an accountant, not necessarily something I really enjoyed or thought I want to do. Really wanted to get more onto the side of working directly with people rather than individuals, rather than institutions. And that's kind of goes back to the, in the very beginning where I almost did go the financial advisor route from the beginning. But I do think those 13 years in the industry really helped, really shaped my understanding of the overall industry, investments and that sort of thing.
Did it also, I'm trying not to ask this as a leading question because I know what the answer is for me coming from a very different industry. Did it also give you quite a perspective though, or maybe kind of informing your perspective of, okay, I did what I did. I put in a lot of time and, probably learned a lot, gained a lot of experience, but I would imagine it's also it's going to teach you what you want and what you don't want for the next portion of your career, right?
Yeah. At a certain point at working in a job, you realize that you've learned as much as you're going to learn. You've probably grown as much as you're going to grow. You become really good at what you do and the money's good.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's a trap.
Yeah.
You could very comfortably do something like this for the next 20, 30 years. And you kind of look at yourself and say, well, after I'm done having kids and I've done this now for 20 or 30 years, am I going to feel like I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish or actually enjoyed the work? There's a difference between a job being easy and paying well and one that you actually really love and enjoy doing.
Right.
The tough part about making that transition is that there is a painful period of time where you're not making the kind of money you were before. And it's that's always been would have been a deterrent from, I guess, jumping off sooner.
Right.
I guess I would say I dated the Veritas team for about 5 years before I finally became an advisor.
Right. And that's something. So I was talking with my wife about this just like a couple of days ago. We were talking about different folks at Veritas and who's been here, how long. And you're always the one that it confuses a lot of people because you have been physically around Veritas for definitely, way more than 5 years. Has it been like 7 years?
At least 7.
Like you were coming to the book club meeting, weekly book club.
Yeah.
Around the office.
I would come to book club meetings and I don't like to read. So it's like, like there had been something there. Right. And, but yeah, no, we were doing that, I think back in 17 or 18.
Yeah.
Is when we were starting to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, at least 3 or 4 years before.
Because you came on full time after I did. I mean, it wasn't long. It was a few months, maybe a couple months.
June or July of 21.
Yeah, and I came on February of 21.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, Corey, then me, then you, all within pretty short succession. But with you, it was like, yeah, but you've been around, you'd built relationships. I mean, obviously you had relationships with Shane and with Chad. You'd built relationship with Lindsay for a while. And so that is, I want to circle back, or I guess I want to go back in time a little bit to UAA. I want to talk about that. So I didn't have a relationship with you. I didn't, you and I didn't know each other really at all. I think I met you a couple times. But my relationship with Jared Kettler was, I would cheer for, bring in Jared if UAA was down big or up big.
Oh, we were hardly ever down big, but yeah, maybe if we were up by 30.
Maybe, I think there were a couple shootout games, back when like the big teams would come up, and I think there was at least one where, maybe UAA was down big, and I'm going, bring in Jared, right? And the whole crowd's cheering. So for UA men's basketball, so that was what? So 05 through 8?
Or 03 to 08. So, I mean, we would have started in fall of 03.
Okay.
That first year I was not even redshirt. It was more of like team manager position,
right.
water boy sort of thing.
Right.
I mean, we could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I do want to talk about it a little bit, because as long as I've gotten to know you over this last 5 years, I always describe you as like, you have the offensive lineman mentality. So the way I didn't play football, but the way I always hear it, and like, the best guests on a sports show, the best analysts oftentimes, it's not necessarily the star quarterback. It's never the star wideout. A lot of those get great offensive linemen because they're team mentality, very selfless, right? They're all about making other people look good, letting other people shine, putting other people in position. And you've been that at Veritas for as long as I've known you, which has been pretty cool to be able to work with you and just see that. And I have my assumptions, but I am curious, like, how much of that came from your time with the Seawolves at UAA, being the bench guy. I mean, obviously initially you were literally the water boy, but you never were a starter, right? You never were the star. We loved you. Like, you were the crowd favorite.
Yeah.
But how much of it came from that? What was that like?
I don't know if it might come from earlier on where, I was always involved in sports. Maybe I didn't feel like it was an option not to try to do whatever I needed to do in order to be part of a team at the next level. I guess I assumed I would come to, if I graduated high school, we could go back down that rabbit hole too. But, I assumed that once I graduated high school, I would just show up at a college and play a sport or something like that. That's how, again, I wasn't recruited or anything like that. Kind of showed up the first week of practices and said, hey, I'd like to play some basketball. And
you're talking when you showed up at UAA.
It showed up at UAA, yeah. What? So I had no conversations with the coaches before or anything.
This is maybe like just for Logan Hufford. Maybe nobody in the audience cares, but I'm curious. I love sports. So give me a little bit of what was high school Jared like? I don't know how big of a high school you were at. I don't know what the level was.
So I went to a very high end college preparatory school.
You were at Oak Hill, right? That was a joke.
Oh,
you and Tracy McGrady and
it was, but very much more on the academic side. So it was smaller. I think our graduating class had right around 100 students. You could play any sport you wanted, pretty much. You were expected kind of to try to participate in a sport. I played in a lot of sports. I ended up getting I think 9 letters in 4 different sports.
So basketball, volleyball?
Yeah. So basketball, football, volleyball, and baseball. Now, baseball and volleyball have competing seasons. So my freshman and sophomore year was baseball, and then I went off and did volleyball. Okay. So, but really enjoyed that. I knew I wanted to do something aviation related in college. In college, that was kind of the only thing I kind of knew for certain. So,
okay.
Really was looking at just a short, small handful of schools. I was looking at North Dakota, my uncle was getting assigned a clergy position up in Fairbanks, and so we were coming up for his ordination, and my dad's like, well, they got an aviation school at Anchorage too. Why don't you just check it out? So we were flying through Anchorage. We took a look at the school. Was pretty impressed that you had tunnels connecting all the buildings.
Right.
Didn't really understand why
Right.
until I got
Right.
here. But yeah, so that's, and ended up applying just to one school. It was UAA, and showed up the first day a week before school classes started.
Yeah. So and you were from Southern California, right?
Yeah.
Coming up to Alaska.
Yeah. Grew up in Dana Point, which is just north of San Diego.
Okay.
Thought everybody outside of California wore cowboy hats, so I made sure to go and buy myself a cowboy hat before I came up here.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I guess so. So I came up with some board shorts, some polo shirts, and a cowboy hat, and that was about all I brought up here.
Nice.
So I had to buy some more clothes. I had to buy a jacket and jeans and stuff. But
okay, so then go back to what you're starting to talk about. So you've got, I don't know, was it Rusty Osborne at that point?
no, so it was Coach Burns.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I showed. So he's like, oh yeah, you know what? Why don't you go out there and
You're a big guy.
He's like, yeah, he's 6'5". Maybe he's not full of it.
Right.
And he's like, go ahead and do a little pickup ball with the guys out there, and if you remember UAA, the gym, they have a little balcony that's
This is at the Wells Fargo.
the Wells Fargo
Right.
back
Next to the
Yeah.
hockey.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's up there and he's watching, and he calls me in after the workout. He's like, yeah, no, dude.
So when you're saying that, you're saying he's watching. I literally, again, I knew what your career was, but I didn't know what you were about to say. I didn't know if he was gonna be like, yeah, man, let's get your spots.
No, he's like, dude, you don't got it. and so I'm pretty upset at this point. I'm just like, I thought I was gonna get to come up and play some basketball or
18 years
something like
old?
that. Yeah, 18 or 17.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had met Coach at the time, Shane Renner, right before. And
Wait, did you meet him in California?
no, it kind of in passing
At UA.
at UAA.
Oh, okay.
When I first walked in to talk to Coach Bruns,
Okay.
and so I walked downstairs to go get my, I don't know, maybe my water bottle or something like that, and be like, okay, I'm going to collect my things and put my head down, go walk back to the
Right.
dorms or something like that. And I guess that was my college shot. And I was pretty upset talking to Shane. I was just like, it's too bad. I was probably in tears, quite honestly. And Shane was just like, you know what, man? Why don't you stick around the program? We're always looking for guys to help work the team out and everything like that. And you can be like a team manager or something like that, or and I was like, what? Hey, that's my that's where I'm at that point. That's what I'm going to do. And I did that for an entire year, and worked my butt off over the summertime. Got in the best shape of my life. Could run a couple consecutive sub 6-minute miles in a row, which I mean, I can only dream of doing that now. But really got in some real good shape, and long story short, ended up making the team that next year, and played another 4 years with the guys.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was really cool, real rewarding experience, and met a lot of my my greatest friends, and to that point, Shane Renner's been a real big part of my development over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
He even had a big part, or if not the biggest part, of getting me the job over at McKinley, because Brandon was over there at the time. So
Shane's brother Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah. So who's they're both advisors over here now. So
Yeah.
It's he's been a real big part of my life, and it was a real joy playing under him, and for playing for him, and all the relationships that I made over the years with the team.
Yeah.
Um,
What when you think about your time with the program, whether it be as a team manager or as a player, what were some highlights or, some key lessons learned, or maybe just a great story from that 5-6 year period?
My first year, I guess the team it was definitely a building year. Also happened to be a year where I actually was able to travel with the team more often and everything like that. Got probably more playing time in that first year than I did in the consecutive years.
Okay.
So there were a lot of neat memories of being able to travel with the team, work out with the team, try to build with the team that year. But I'd say the greatest memories was that final year. We had a real good team. A lot of guys that we had been together now for 4 years, 4 or 5 guys. And so it was a mature team, a team that had played a lot. And
is this are we talking like Kemi, Carl Arts, Aaron, or are some of them gone? I don't remember when certain people left, but
yeah, I'd have to think if that year, if this was definitely after Kemi. This would have been Carl Arts, Luke Cooper,
yeah,
McCade Olson, Lonnie Ridgway.
Okay.
So it was, but
a lot of, I mean, most of those names are
still
in this, still in
Yeah.
the basketball scene in Anchorage
Yeah.
and Eagle River and the Valley. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and Cameron Burney, he's down south, but it was those guys. I think they were the kind of the core starters and everything like that. And but one of the more fond memories I would imagine that we keep going back to is that we had this pre-game routine where we had a couple Australians,
Yeah.
and we had a guy from New Zealand, and we'd always do the haka.
Yeah.
And it was pretty special.
Yeah.
It's when it's not part of your culture, I imagine the first couple of times we did it, we probably were kind of like laughed it off and be like, this is kind of weird.
Right.
But by the end of it, it got us going, and it actually got the crowd going every time we did it too. It was pretty special, pretty neat. So those were, that team in particular, my senior year, but those pregame rituals where we would end up doing the haka, that was probably one of the things that'll always stay in my mind.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What was something that you learned that you really you did not expect to learn when you stepped on the court to practice with the guys, and you ended up being a part of the team for the next half decade? What's something that you took away always stick with you?
For what it's worth, I guess it would be that you don't need to necessarily be a skilled player to have a big impact on the team. And I want to say that in the least, selfish way possible, because I never really thought that I, had a big impact, but, you get to the end of it and, people talk about it. I guess one of the biggest lessons that I learned is however hard you want to, I'd come up and I'd show up to practice in the games every day like I was a starter, and I knew I wasn't ever going to play, unless something weird happened. And again, so I don't know if that's something that I learned, but maybe it's.
What do you mean as far as like your pregame stretching, workout, things like that? Your just your mentality of just you're ready to go.
I was ready to go, and not stepping on the court, knowing that, hey, I'd be 100%, and I'd come 100, play 100%, even though I know I wasn't, the top player, and I knew I wasn't going to wasn't really going to play in a game or maybe necessarily have an impact in that particular game, but I was going to help get the guys prepared and, make sure that they got to practice on time, because I was one of the only guys with a car.
Okay.
So, maybe that's why they kept me around,
Right.
Shuttle the guys around. No, hopefully not, but no, it was, that sort of thing. And becoming a role player where there's an opportunity to have a role.
Yeah.
And that's the one I did was, I'd show up to practice every day, and, work hard and do the stuff off the court too. Also brought the team's GPA up. Yeah,
It's important.
they need that stuff when they start to try to go get money and stuff like that. And every once in a while, you got to show that
Got to have Beer Bear around.
Somebody's going to graduate.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's cool to hear because again, like yes, I've gotten to know you, but most of the time when we're at work, we do work. So I haven't heard a lot of these stories, especially not from your mouth. I've heard some stories from Shane, and different people, but there's so many games over the years because we'd go to. I'm sure I missed some, but we basically went to every single home game during that stretch. Not because of you. I mean, we did love you, but I didn't really know you, but because Chad was involved, right? And Chad getting to know some of the guys. And there were so many games that like, I'm seeing you, you wouldn't usually have your tracksuit off, right? I mean, like you've usually got your jacket and pants on for the entire game. And I'm wanting you to get in there. I'm wanting to give Jared a couple minutes, and even now watching an NBA game, watching a college game, sometimes I wonder what does it feel like to be that guy where, you're the 12th guy at the end of the bench and you go in for a couple minutes, like physically, mentally, emotionally, I don't know. And I would imagine, and I've heard the stories from people, that it varies, right? Some people are prepared and some people are not, to put it as simply as possible. So it's cool to hear you share that. Does anything stand out from an experience on the court in those few years? Is there any experience that really stands out?
Well, I mean, I can, there's 20 years later, you start to wonder which things you still remember. A lot of the stuff you remember was stuff that actually happened off the court. With you're with these guys for so frequently that you do everything together.
Yeah. So
a lot of the memories are of stuff that is off the court. I say on the court. I mentioned that senior year that team we were really good. I think we might have gotten really close to winning 20 straight games or something like that, something crazy like that. Ended up going to the Final Four for Division II. One of the memories that I'm going to have is, you mentioned that you don't know what the guy down the bench, if he's ready to play. I remember getting called in that final game in the Final Four to go play. And it was kind of you look back at it now and maybe they weren't thinking it through, but it was probably a spark moment for some of the other guys.
I don't remember what was the scenario.
We were down. I remember, we were down quite a bit, but we weren't playing well.
Yeah.
And they put me in, and I got a foul, so I got my stat. And I might have gotten a rebound. I don't remember that part, but I was probably only in for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then they took me back out, and we ended up going back on a run, and we didn't quite finish it off, but I don't think it was embarrassing. I can't even remember the ending score. I don't think we lost by more than 10, so I think it was close enough to be close. But yeah, that's a memory that'll stick with me for a long time, is getting an opportunity to play in that Final Four game, and it being used as kind of a spark to kind of get the other guys going.
Yeah.
Get them a little bit back on track and be like, hey man, we just had to put Jared in.
Great. Well, Jared's out here hustling. Yeah.
Let's get it done. And, it might have worked. Maybe not enough to push us.
Could have put you in a little earlier.
Should have put me in earlier.
We can go talk to Shane about it right now.
Yeah.
So, as we close up, I want to circle back to Veritas itself and your time here. Over the last, we'll just say, since you've been officially here, right? So over the last about 5 years, what's something that has maybe surprised you since coming on here? Whether a lesson learned or an experience or just something that's so far been kind of a cool surprise.
I think one of the things I was always dreading, when with joining the industry was, I had a perception that financial advisors were just salesmen, and we're just trying to complete a transaction and stuff like that. With talking with Shane and Chad when we were coming over, I kind of got the idea that maybe it's not going to be like that. I'd say, hey, well, let's give it a shot. And, it's been very rewarding. And you feel like you're actually, really helping people. I still don't like picking up the phone and making calls,
right?
Trying to get people on the phone and stuff like that. It's definitely not what I enjoy doing. But all the stuff I really enjoy doing is actually sitting down, working with the people. Once you can but you realize that you actually have to make those calls in order to be able to get those people in front of you. But seeing these people on their annual review, a couple years after they've been with us, making progress towards their financial goals, working with them to get their balance sheets cleaned up, getting them out of debt during the whole process of their long-term financial goals. That's where it's really rewarding, is seeing that progress for people. And then also, unfortunately, we do come across people that are at real low points in their lives. They've lost a loved one or something like that. Of course, those can be really difficult times to be working with people, but it's also incredibly rewarding to be able to help people during these times and work through it too. So I think that's the part where I never, before I came into the industry, again, I was like, oh man, it's all going to be sales. You're going to have to make quotas and this, all that stuff. And didn't realize how much of an impact or how much I'm going to enjoy, seeing people year by year making progress, and then also being able to help these people when they're just at their lowest of lows.
That's cool. What do you look for in an ideal client?
I'd say the ideal client for me is somebody who's motivated. I mean, we get bailed out a lot with our Ramsey affiliation. A lot of people have already heard a lot of the Ramsey,
kind of as far as the way of doing things.
So they've already kind of like, they know what they're supposed to do and everything like that. They just need a little bit of a guidance. It's really the people that those are the easy ones. I'd say the most rewarding ones are the people that really have that long-term focus. Some of my favorite people to work with are, people who are just starting off, might not have a huge income, but we've set that long-term financial goal. It's not even something that they're going to be touching for another 30, 35, 40 years in some cases, if they're 20 years old. And how motivated they are to, because a lot of people in their 20s are going out and they're buying stuff that they can't afford and racking up student loans and everything like that. But every once in a while, you end up with getting somebody who's just like, man, they're putting more money than they're spending away.
Yeah. Head screwed on real straight.
It's real cool. Yeah. And watching those young people that, because that if they're putting that money away in their 20s, it's going to compound and compound, and it's going to be incredible by the time they're in their 50s. And I hope I'm still around, doing this stuff in 30 years, but it's like, man, they might be retiring when I'm done, and somebody else has my client list or something like that, for all I know. But those are the
young Jonas out there.
Maybe my son, my 9-year-old. We'll see. He's we'll have to have a podcast about that.
We can do the parenting week next week.
Yeah, that's right. I got 4 kids, just like most people in this office, except
all the best people. Yeah. I guess I did. I skipped over the family aspect, which is not my normal. I love family, but So
for another show.
That's right. Well, thank you, man. Thank you seriously for taking out time of your day. Of course, those listening and watching don't know, but I hit you with a text a couple hours ago, just seeing if you could carve out some time today. And I'm glad we could make it work. I've been trying to think of a way for us to do a one-on-one podcast, and I wasn't sure like the exact topic that would be best. I'm like, no, let's just get to know Jared a little bit. So this has been really cool.
Well, you get me out of my comfort zone a little bit. Again, probably right above my enjoyment list from making prospecting calls to sit down on a podcast, but I had fun. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, go have a gummy bear on me, man.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're all out, but all right.
Thanks, Jared.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.